I never really got into the discussion on how I walked away from the Democratic Party and when I walked away and why I walked away. Um, I think I started to see cracks in the Democratic paradigm probably around the end of 2015 into the election of 2016 with Hillary Clinton. Up until then, I was a Democrat, and I did vote for Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. And when she lost, the night she lost, I was amazed at how quick the night was. I mean, it was favored for Donald Trump pretty early in the night. I think at least by 10 p.m. or 11. And I was shocked by it because up until then, the polls were showing, at least from left wing media, that she was way ahead, at least 10 points or more from Donald Trump. And that night, when everything was said and done, I was kind of shook. And then things really just started to fall apart. I started seeing that we're either being lied to or we're being lied to. There was really no way of me getting out of it. And so at that point, I said, let me step away from left wing media at this point because clearly they're not telling us the truth. And so I started looking at, panning out and broadening my perspective and started listening directly at what people were saying, what was coming out of their mouth. And when I started doing that, and then going back and forth between right-wing media and left-wing media, I started realizing that both were problematic. But the left-wing media really were just taking things really out of context. And not just taking things out of context, but actually lying. Just outright lying about what Donald Trump was saying, fabricating or really taking things out of context. And then the more I went back and forth, I realized, oh my God, these people that there's no real journalism at that point. And because I felt at that point that the left wing media pretty much was operating, for the DNC, I finally the trust, everything just went out the window for me. And it's not that I take everything that the right wing media is saying, but at least it's more in line or a little bit closer to the truth than what I found with the left wing media. And and as time went on, it went from mistrust to just downright disagreeing with all their policies. They've become just a little bit too far to the left for me. Their policies I didn't agree with at all, from immigration to crime, locking people up, and not locking people up when they're committing crimes. Their stance on genderism and allowing boys and men into women's spaces, especially with the sports. I really had a problem with that. And so it was just one thing after another that I just felt that they were increasingly becoming more hysterical in their stance. And as time went on, right into 2020 and right into the last election in 2024, they just went batshit out of their mind. Some of the things that they were supporting, even up until now, with trying to coddle terrorists, using activist judges to try to keep terrorists in the country, wacko, crazo shit, and it's not that I left so much the Democratic Party, is that I felt that their core messaging really just left me. I just couldn't support it anymore. And they've gotten worse with their rhetoric. And now the latest polls, and I'm talking about very liberal polls, So don't come for me that I'm getting this from right-wing media. This is left-wing. This is NBC polling coming out showing that the Democratic Party has really doubled down on their crazy. And after Chuck Schumer agreed to, with the CR, the continuing resolution to keep the government going, uh, they're really apoplectic. And now the polling is showing that AOC is in the front lead as the next leader. She's getting 10% of the vote, and I think Harris has got 9. Really crazy. Harris has got 9% still with that disastrous campaign she spearheaded over the last election. And then Bernie Sanders has 8. Hakeem Jeffries, I think he's got 6%, and then Barack and Jasmine Crockett are tied at 4%. So what does that tell you about the Democratic Party? I mean, they're just doubling down on staying left and becoming more radical. And they're losing members. They're losing people like me, but they're hemorrhaging Democrats. And I would think at this point, move to the center, but they don't seem to they have no interest in that. They're not going to move to the center. They're going to go further and further to the left. And I think they're going to hemorrhage even more people. I mean, they're at 27% as a whole approval rating. I mean, that's really concerning, especially when we're really a year out from the midterms, which are important too, because, who we vote for in the midterms is going to determine how the executive branch is going to be able to pass any kind of legislation. So people on the right really need not be complacent. Even though it looks like the Democratic Party is imploding on themselves, that doesn't give us an excuse to just sit back and relax and just, sit there and watch them explode. We still have to be as vigilant as we can be to make sure these crazies don't get into power, or at least at the very least make it difficult for us to pass legislation and get this country back on track with reasonable, common sense policies, like keeping a strong border, keeping men and boys out of women's spaces and sports, putting people in jail that commit crimes and keeping our streets safe and clean, and have a prosperous economy where, the point of view is really America first. That's what I voted for, and I think a lot of people on the right voted for that. This isn't crazy stuff. This is normal stuff that the Democrats at one point used to herald. This is what they used to stand on. Working class, common sense, American first kind of legislation. And now they're just gone off the rails into crazy land. And, that for me, I just couldn't support it anymore. And I think a lot of people feel this way. I think a lot of people who, especially those who were Democrats at one point, I think they have echoed. I've read and seen and heard people echo the same sentiments that I've just spoke about. And I don't see a way out at this point for the Democratic Party, especially since they're doubling down and becoming more radicalized. I don't see how they're going to, I don't know how they're going to get around this and win any major election. So we'll see. I'd be interested in your thoughts about what I've spoken about and how you walked away from the Democratic Party. What's your story? And comment below, because I feel that, at one point before I even started talking about politics on this channel, sometimes you feel like you're alone, especially as a Black conservative. But I'm seeing more and more people, coming out and speaking their truth, and this is not radical stuff to me. This is just common sense. In my worldview, I feel that this perspective is normal, whereas the other side has just gotten so radicalized. I don't know how they can justify it, but comment below, and I'd be interested in what you guys think. Thanks for watching.